G'day guys, Tills20 here and welcome back to Parkitect. In today's episode, we edge closer to the grand entrance of the park. We are getting pretty close to opening up to the guests. As you can see, we are still in map editor mode and just putting in the groundwork to basically get the park ready for the opening day. Maybe a few episodes away until we can do that, but you know, I just want to make sure that we have everything working and functioning and basically putting in as much work in as possible before opening so that we can save ourselves that little bit of extra cash, because I dare say we're going to need it to make sure that we meet those objectives and, you know, ultimately try and make a bit of a profit, which I think is going to be fairly challenging because we are going for a quite a large scale theme park, and we are also not going to have that many rides. I mean, we will have quite a few rides, but they're going to be pretty spaced out, and we can only really place rides that you'd usually find within a Universal theme park or a Disney theme park. That is the sort of ride style we're going for. I think if we were designing a park that was more based on like Silver Dollar City or, you know, a Six Flags theme park, then, you know, it would be a little bit easier to make a profit because you could just place down a fair amount of flat rides. But I don't think I'll be doing that many flat rides, and if they are, you know, if we do have flat rides within the park, then they will be pretty themed. So, you know, we're not going to be doing, like, there's not going to be that many filler rides. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's going to be pretty challenging. So I don't think making a profit is going to be something that is going to be that easy, and I will have quite a few other sort of objectives that I'll be working towards. So in today's episode, we are getting closer to the main entrance. This is the footpath crossing the highway, and we are also working on like this really great looking sculpture that you'll see me build. It's like a water feature that looks pretty similar. In fact, it's pretty much identical to the Universal Studios globe that you find at the entrance of those parks. Just because I think they are just really iconic, and I think that they make really great grand entrances. So I wanted to place something similar within my park, but just, you know, my own little twist, which is generally what we've been doing, you know, in this park so far. And we'll also do a live play, which I haven't done in a little while. So we'll do a live play around the 17-minute mark. But what we've been up to so far, just been figuring out what the path color is going to look like, something that I struggle with and will continue to struggle with moving forward, because this is, you know, I guess so many colors to choose from, and, you know, the ground, the path color takes, you know, quite a big focus. You know, it occupies most of the park. So, you know, trying to find the right color, the right texture, you know, what sort of materials you're going to create it out of, you know, it can be a little bit challenging because I think, you know, you get given quite a few options. And because this is, you know, there's quite a lot in this area, there's going to be a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people are going to be entering into the park, and lots of different areas to enter from, then, yeah, you know, means that there's going to be a fair amount of footpath. So I just wanted to make sure I was getting the right color, but don't get used to it because I do end up changing it in the next episode. And so basically, the way that this entrance works, people enter from the footpath that crosses over the highway. This is like the main entrance where I think most of the people will be coming from, because this is where the train station is and where the commercial district is as well. And then we've got this ramp that's, you know, ramps are very much of a struggle within this game because you either have these stairs or you have steeper stairs, unfortunately. I guess this is one of the limitations we've working within this like limited isometric view of the game, but it would be nice to have some sort of ramp included within the game, like potentially maybe later on down the track. I just don't think it's very inclusive of Parkitect, but, you know, I understand you don't really have very many options. You know, there's basically like two levels. There's maybe like 3 levels of incline. There's stairs, and there's steeper stairs, and then there's like a sheer cliff. So unfortunately, if you want to create any sort of ramp, you are limited to the scenery items. And what I think works somewhat okay, I think probably the best you could possibly get, is this roof tile or these roof props, and they're just slightly more of a gradual incline than using the stairs. So that's what I'm doing here. And just to make it look a little bit more of a gradual incline, I am trying to just create these like different levels where, you know, it's more of a flat area, and that way it just sort of gives that appearance of a gradual incline. But, you know, it's not perfect. I think that it would be really nice to have some sort of ramp included within the game. Maybe some of you kind people who create mods and props that might be able to potentially make something like that, but I don't know, it might be pretty impossible within this game. But I think for the time being, I think this looks alright. You know, obviously within Parkitect, you just have to use your imagination for a lot of these different items. And for inspiration, you can probably tell that we are taking ideas from Universal Studios in Osaka. So they've got this entrance, basically you can enter from this commercial district that makes its way across the highway. And then you've also got this I guess more of an underpass ramp area where the buses will drop tourists off and guests off, and there's also like a really big parking that's around the edge of the park too, which I'll probably end up including something similar, you know, just a big parking lot. But, you know, obviously that's not going to make for the most interesting of areas. But you will probably notice that because we are going for a lot of realism, you know, we will have to include a lot of those sort of things, and warehouses and, you know, factories and all those like backstage areas that will be surrounding the park, I think will be pretty fun to include. So yeah, that's something that I will end up doing. I didn't really have huge amounts of room to create like a bus or like, you know, road area for the buses, but you know, I think that this like still sort of works. You know, obviously the buses wouldn't really be able to realistically make a turn around those corners. They're pretty tight, but I just think that, you know, working within this isometric limited view, I still think that this looks quite nice, and that's what I'm trying to go for with this series. Is, you know, we're sort of working within the limitations of Parkitect, which honestly is probably half the fun of this game, to be honest. I love the isometric and cartooniness and blockiness of the game. That is half the fun of it. So, you know, we are sort of like a cross between isometric, blocky cartoonness of the game, and then we are also trying to do as much realism as possible. So those corners, not so realistic, but, you know, they sort of fit more into the Parkitect style of, you know, planning, I guess, for the game. Something else that is different from the last episode, you might also notice that we are using the extra foliage mod. I think it's called extra foliage, or it might just be called foliage, or foliage essentials. I can't remember the name of it, but basically these are added trees within the game, and they just look amazing. They're super realistic, and there's lots to choose from. I also do really like the Parkitect trees, just because they are so simple and, you know, blocky. Again, sort of going with that Parkitect realism. But I just really do love these ones. So we are swapping out the vanilla trees with these extra modded ones, and I just think they add a lot to the park. And you probably notice that I've also placed them in like all these little planters that sit around the edge of the pathway, and I just think they look really great when they're just raised up a bit and they've got their own garden beds. And I'm doing that in a couple of different ways. I've used a lot of the retaining walls, just the walls as retaining walls, but I'm also using a lot of the shapes. I believe I'm subscribed to a mod that allows me to use some extra shapes, and some of the really nice things about those extra shapes is that you can actually raise them and lower them in way more defined increments, so you can actually get those really nice details. And the nice thing about that is you can actually create mulch within the planters, so you can probably see that. It's a little bit hard to see. I'll probably do a much better example of that a little bit down the track, and actually, you know what, I might show you that in more detail when we go into the live play. But I really like creating that mulch and the dirt that sits within the planters. It adds just so much detail, and it just helps to hide some of the messiness that I'm leaving behind when, you know, creating the ramp and creating some of the footpaths. You'll see me use that quite a lot moving forward within the park. And I just really love that we've got multiple levels. You know, I just think that, and this is something that I also use within City Skylines, I just think it adds a lot when you know, don't just work with just the one level of terrain. I think that, you know, when you use multiple levels, I think it adds quite a lot of detail. So now we're starting to work on my favorite part of this episode, and we are working on the statue of $2 Studios, or the feature, or the, you know, the main iconic area that people come and they get a photo here and they post it to Instagram. This is like the biggest feature of GeIL Studios, and yeah, I really love this thing. I think it turned out great. It was a real struggle, and it was really hard to figure out exactly where to place it. I knew I wanted to place it here, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to make it, or you know, how it's going to fit in with the rest of this area and with the terrain and all that sort of stuff. So this is obviously based off Universal Studios. Universal Studios has that big old globe that people, you know and recognize from Universal Studios movies and from their theme parks as well. And you know, this is something that is at the front of every single park. So this is what I wanted in my park, something based on it. I really love the globe aspect of it, but I did want something a little bit different in the inside. And because this is $2 Studios, I thought, you know, we do need maybe my $2 logo in there. So I thought, you know, let's try and get that in. And there was this really great net that you can see that I've placed around it. I can't remember what mod I'm using to get that, but it's you know, just it's awesome. I think it looks really great. So I thought, you know, we'll stick the $2. So we obviously got the $2 and we got the 20 cents in there. And I just thought it would be really cool to have some sort of water feature. And it's really quite easy to create your own water features and fountains just by using like some sort of watercolored ground texture or ground surface. So that's what I did here. Rather than actually making it real water, it is actually just, I believe it might just be the foot cover or something like that. Footbath cover, I should say. And then, yeah, you might see some blocks like surrounding the net too. So they are, so like basically my go-to for letters. I know we do have letters within the game, but to really embrace the blockiness of the game, I am trying to use a lot of the blocks, which are just the vanilla cubes that come with the game. And I just wanted to use them as if they were letters, and I've sort of spaced them out in the, well, I've spaced them out to spell $2 Studios, and I think it looks really cool. I just think it's a really cool little feature. Obviously they look like blocks, but you know, you just sort of stretching your imagination with this game. That is definitely the theme for this series. And I end up creating, you know, obviously the colors are right off at the moment, but I end up painting them a bronzy color, just so that it looked like this whole area was made out of, or at least the statue was made out of metal. And I just think it turns out really great. And yeah, just sort of created this like layered stepping area too. So yeah, like I said, all the colors are just wrong because I'm just trying to figure out exactly how everything's going to sit within this area. And I knew that I wanted to have some sort of planted area that surrounded it. And you know, I'm really loving doing these raised garden beds, using these shapes. I just think it adds a lot to these areas, and something that I'm going to be doing a lot within $2 Studios are these like raised garden beds. And the really great thing is when you like know exactly the shapes and already like place down a lot of the shapes and the props and the scenery items, you can then start using the eyedrop tool to basically copy and paste them, and it's just so great. So that's something that I'm doing a lot of, which, you know, I guess like starting off a park is really tricky because you have to like search and scroll through all the scenery items. But then once you've actually created, you know, a bit of your park, then you can just start using the eyedrop tool and just, yeah, so easy. Now it's time to move to the portion of the episode that was the biggest struggle. Like this now is really, this is like struggle street. And the reason why I was really struggling with this area and this part was, you know, I just sort of like jumped into, you know, creating this entrance without thinking about symmetry and without thinking about how everything is going to look from bird's eye view, particularly with the path and the two entrances meeting as well, where the ticket gate's going to be. And then I just started to realize that everything was like not perfectly even and symmetrical, which I know is going to drive a lot of you guys pretty crazy. It was definitely driving me crazy, and I don't fix it in this episode, but next episode I do make some bigger improvements. And I think what does help is by changing the color of the ground, because I think that because you've got like such strong differences between the the terracotta color and the grayness of the sidewalks, you know, you can really tell that nothing is symmetrical. But you know, moving forward when we start actually changing the ground, and again, I'm still so far away from even coming to, you know, a conclusion with how I'm going to actually, you know, color the ground. I just think that it helps quite a lot. So yeah, you will see that a little bit later on. But yeah, I do really struggle with that. Mostly to do with the ticket entrance, because also the ticket booths, because they don't really align that well with both the entrances, and yeah, I really had a hard time doing that, unfortunately. But yeah, now that I've started changing all the colors of this area, my god, I just love the way that this thing turns out. I just continue to change. I mean, you will see a lot of what I do in the live segment, which is coming up. But basically, you know, everything's starting to come alive, and you know, it'd be good to see how everybody is like interacting with the environment and how everything is working, which we will see within the live play. I'll have to test everything out and make sure that things are working, and you know, because obviously, like, you know, people are probably going to walk through, you know, different scenery items and stuff like that, so I have to like figure out exactly how to fix that. And also you can see that I've planted some of these palm trees. So these palm trees is something that I want to include a lot around the entrance and around a lot of the park, because, you know, I'm trying to figure out exactly whereabouts I think that this park would be located within the world, and I probably think that being a movie studio theme park, I think it'd probably be based around Los Angeles or, you know, somewhere around the area. So I thought some palm trees would probably make for the best use of foliage to place around these areas. And I just, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to be using later on down the track, you know, as the main tree, as so the main tree for this park. And now I'm just finishing off by placing down some more blocks as if they're letters, and this is obviously for people who are driving along the road, then they can actually see the GeIL Studios logo that is on this wall, which is this really great curved wall. I really love this. I just think this turns out great. But this is pretty much it for the time lapse. We're going to get into the live play, and man, I've got a couple of cool things to show you. Alright guys, welcome to the live segment. So I wanted to basically test out the park and see if everything is working the way that it should. We've already got a whole bunch of problems, so this is definitely not a safe game that I'm going to keep. But it's just really nice to see people wandering around and hanging out in the park, so yeah, that's a plus. One thing that I've already figured out that is just a problem is that I had some walls here that I had to delete because basically people couldn't get inside, which is going to be a bit of a problem because, you know, obviously we want people to come in. But before I show you all the things that I was doing in this time lapse, I do want to show you a couple of things that I've just added. So, you know, from the surface, you know, you can obviously see all the paths that the guests will take, and you know, hidden within these walls is just actually a complete network of all the, basically all the paths that all the workers are going to be taking, which is just so cool. And I've created, and I'm just going to show you, cool. All right, so back here is this whole backstage area where a lot of the cargo is going to be coming in from this area, and, you know, going through these doors is basically where you connect up to all these shops, and you know, all the top layer shops have all these connections which are good, and we have this staff room hidden in here as well, and you know, I've just got these like really cool little, you know, little doorways I really like, because I obviously use all those doorways, and then looking through here, yeah, these guys are all connected up, which is great. So we've got these paths that go underneath, and then for this little food court that we created last episode, well, might need to fix that up. Don't want people going through that wall, but yeah, all these guys are connected up too. Oh, actually, okay, there's another problem, something we need to fix, but yeah, okay, not these guys aren't connected. There's obviously walls that are stopping them. All right, so we might need to fix that up too. I've got a notepad here that I'm just writing down notes so I can see what's what, but I just really like that there's this whole back area that is pretty hidden from the public, you know, so they connect through there and then through here, and then we have this gate here, which is obviously the pretty much the only area that is out of bounds from guests, I should say. Yeah, cool. And then I've also made sure that, you know, people aren't, because what happened is when I opened up the park before, they were wandering around all around here. So I just stopped them. Direct route into the park. But yeah, so that's all working. I just wanted to show you that because I thought that was pretty fun. It's just really great seeing people actually go inside these stores too. So we'll have to actually properly name these stores and make sure that they are selling merchandise or things that are, you know, obviously things that you'd find within the park or within these actual restaurants. By the way, keep the names coming for this place because they've just been really great. All right, now I wanted to show you, actually, before I show you, this is going to be my favorite. I really love that this is actually just flashing lights as if it is an arcade. And I think I will end up placing some sort of motion simulator in here because I think that'll fit in. All right. So, crossing the path. So, crossing the road, I should say. So, again, I'm going to change a lot of this, like, from tiles. I think I might change it to something different, like, other than tiles. But, I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. And crossing over, we now have the entrance. So, I've actually done a bit of work off camera. And I'll show you how I did all this in the time-lapse of the next episode. But here is the ticket booth. And this is what I'm kind of leaning towards, but I'm going to change it up a bit. It's not going to be just exclusively this. But I've also created this whole area over here that'll have like little shops in here, like souvenir shops and probably first aid. And down here we'll also have where, you know, some backstage areas, which is going to be pretty cool. And we have just here the $2 Studios main feature, whatever you call it. I don't know what to call it. What do you call this, guys? The statue of $2 Studios. I just think this turned out great. I've just made some of the colors of, well, the brand $2, $2.20, the brand of $2.20. So yeah, they are the, don't go in there, mate. Yeah, I just think that turned out great. So obviously trying to go for a bit of a color scheme. This is like that bronzy color that I was talking about, and these blocks that we have. So you can see that actually sort of isn't in the shape of $2 Studios. Each block is a different letter, of course. Might need to fix that. I don't want people wandering in there. All right, we'll fix that up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just turned out really great. There's a couple of things that we need to fix up. Like I wouldn't mind might need to make these planters just a little bit darker. But that is definitely a technique I'm going to be using throughout the park. And it's pretty, like I wanted there to be a lot of plants around. So like we've got this whole ivy that's climbing up the wall, and you know, down here, which will probably need a little bit of extra work, I think, a little later on down the track. But I really like that, you know, there's multiple entrances to the park. You know, we've got this ramp, but people are coming from the buses. And when we go a little bit further on down here, we'll have some sort of parking lot that'll probably be way down the path down here. But, you know, people are probably also coming from, you know, other public transport systems around or parking on the street, and they can actually access it through these little areas. It's just looking really great. And it's going to be really fun when we actually get all this, you know, all this area all detailed up too. But guys, do let me know what you think in the comment section. We do have a little bit of work to do, and I'm pretty keen to like jump into it and work on some extra things. But guys, that is pretty much it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I do want to give a special shout out to some of my patrons like Tran, Rodney Green, and Matthew Lewis. Guys, thank you so much for all your support, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.